Kia ora. Good evening. How are you? I'd like to welcome you all that you're going to be just joining. And tonight we have, only me, and we're going to start like lessons. We're going to verify, we're going to check together a pragmatic approach with clean architecture in .NET projects. So what happens is that we're going to be having lessons where we can explore how we can properly implement clean architecture without over engineering and adopting good practices, right? The intent is for us just to verify how things work behind the scenes in adopting these different patterns and but understanding the purpose of them. There are different templates nowadays that are very optimized, but at the same time, get going with that is just take some time if you are coming new to clean architecture. So let's just get started, but the lessons are happening in for this session. So just introduce myself. My name is Marcel Medina. I'm a software developer and Azure specialist. I work as a practice lead at Datacom. This is my blog post, and there where I share my posts and where we get to talk. I get to share like about .NET. I get to share about Azure. I'm also like a playground enthusiast and coder. In this, I was recently awarded by Microsoft as MVP, Microsoft MVP. And this is the QR code if you keen to check more details. My posts are there available on the blog. Before we get started, like tonight's gonna be hands-on entirely, and I would like to share with you and to invite you to also join the user group. And because the intent of the user group, right? So we are like a group of developers. We love coding. We love to adopt like best practices in software development languages and technologies. In general, our talks are more related to the Microsoft technologies, but we're open to other technologies as well. The main intent of this group, right, so is to enable developers with practical knowledge to excel in launch careers. So I always mention that if you are a junior dev, even if you are like a lead developer, you're gonna make the most from these sessions, and you're gonna learn, right? So from different aspects, where like as a junior, you get to learn something new, but if you're a senior, you're gonna get to have like a different perspective of how things can be done. We're part of Azure.com, which is a cloud native user group, and that we talk about the latest and greatest of what comes on cloud native, and part of .NET Foundation as well. So where like the new open source projects are sponsored by the .NET Foundation. As I mentioned, this tonight's going to be a pretty full on and hands-on. I'm gonna share my screen here so we can just continue from another place in here. Just a minute. I reckon, like for me, I've been really keen to uh, have these sessions for some time, but in general, they takes time. It takes time because as we get to do like some hands-on, we also talk about like the different possibilities, and that can take some time. But for tonight, right? So we're gonna have a quick intro. I think the clean architecture topic it's widely known, or I'm not gonna approach like the details of like the different sort of layers or in depth. I'm gonna provide a link for you to explore by yourself. But at the same time, like this intro is gonna be very uh, um, succinct, right? So we're not gonna explore in details, but I think it's gonna get you excited to learn more. That's my expectation for you, and it's going to be hands-on. So I'm expecting to spend like maybe 10 minutes tops on introduction, and then for the hands-on, to be honest, I think we're gonna pass the 1 hour mark. In general, we have that for all of the sessions. And for tonight, I think we're gonna pass the mark. So, but I hope like you enjoy and you get to see like the difficult, the different decisions that we take along like the coding. And let's get going. All right. Hope you guys like my paintbrush skills. And what I brought in here, like so, that's the different layers of, uh, well, of the common clean architecture, also like called known as onion or ports and adapter. Well, it just like the main intent, right, is just to focus on business domain, right? So that's where the focus is, and not necessarily the technology stacks. But well, at the core, right? So we have like the main abstractions, also called domain in other definitions. But in here, like that's where like all of the abstractions, all of the main elements of the solution are going to be present. We have the application where we have more where the business rules are enforced, right? By taking those abstractions and making decisions, you could compare that like to more like an orchestration level. And well, in the outer layers, we have like the infrastructure user interface. So it depends, right? Like infrastructure, the focus, as I said, like it comes with an inwards dependency. So it doesn't matter if you're taking a repository like for like a database, could be SQL, could be NoSQL, or the user interface, could be a console, could be a web. Um, it doesn't matter like the technologies. You determine the behavior by implementing those abstractions that come from the core and the application that orchestrates the different behaviors. And you can see the flag there, like the arrow, everything goes inwards, right? So we don't have dependencies going the other way. The outer layers reference the inner layers. That's a reference if you want like to explore more and see more details by yourself. And I'm gonna bring like those two main templates, right? I have like worked with those templates for a while, like in production release, where I worked with like Jason Taylor templates or Steven Smith Ardalis as well. They have like pretty good templates. But at the same time, when you're jumping to it, if you don't know like the different decisions that were adopted and by those templates, because they were like very optimized, right? And they solve like different problems with different patterns. And if you're a junior dev coming to that, it can be daunting, right? Like just something really difficult to get going, right? Because without knowing what the underlying implementation or the main goals of the different implementations, it's just difficult just to get going. Even like if you read the documentation, yeah, it's I think you get to learn as you do it. And for like the more like senior devs, like when they jump to that, it feels yeah, there are like some standards and there are ways of you how you can replicate or increase your model based with those templates, right? But at the same time, if you get going with those templates, you're not going to change that much, right? We're just going to go with it and make the most of what the template provides. In my approach here, like for the more junior devs, right, it's not going to be production ready. My intent is just to show how the clean architecture should be designed. And for the more senior devs, it's just like I know that you're coming here just to have like a different perspective, and that's my intent, just to show you like the how you would create from a vanilla sort of templates. I'm not following any sort of templates available in the markets. I'm just coming with my understanding, what we can do, but if you were to start from scratch, right? From here, we're going to have the other lessons. You're going to be improving the implementation, right? No further ado, let's go and jump into the demo. I'm going to bring my Visual Studio, so that should be coming here. Let me see. I think I shared my window rather than, let me stop sharing this. I'm going to bring another one. Should be coming. Yes, that's my whole screen, right? So what I have done before, like starting this, right? I create like this project in here, and you can jump like to the GitHub later on as I commit that, and you can verify and download the codes yourself, right? So I'm gonna copy this, put like on the chat. For now, it's empty. Of course, we're gonna get like on this journey together, and I'm gonna be explaining this in details for you guys. Let's get going. And I think like what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna full screen, put like this on full screen. Yes, I think this one is better. Let's create like a project, right? So I've done like well, let me bring here. So I did like a git clone already. I brought this one in, so it's just empty. I have nothing here. So from here, we're going to create like the project, right? Let me come in here and create a project. It's going to be a class library. We're going to get to the particular folder. Let's call clean arch for architecture, but just like a kind of abbreviation. And let's create a core. I'm going to create like the project as the core, but the solution as clean arch. And let's go next. I'm leveraging .NET 7 on this one. And from here, so well, we got the project created, right? We're going to be talking about how to create this structure of the different dependencies and the folder structure as well. So you can see we have the core, right? So we have created that one. What we're going to have inside, let's put like some sort of folders. We're going to start first with entities, right? The clean architecture is not something that you can this design, right, or the software design is intended for complex business domains. And so if you have like crude, like simple operations, this would be like more like over engineered, right, for simple applications. But when you have a business domain that you have business rules, right? I think that's the main point. If you have business rules in your domain, that's a good start for you to start thinking about the clean architecture. What I'm going to come up in here is um, would be something that we can use for comments, right? So we're going to create comments. Users are going to be able to like it, but they not necessarily would be able to submit comments without being having like maybe like some points, right? Or they need to achieve same as with Stack Overflow, right? Like you cannot like unless you have provided some sort of content, some sort of comments. In here, I'm not going to allow you to comment unless you have some sort of points. But the idea is that like to have some sort of behavior, some rules in there. Let's get started with. I'm going to create like one called comment. That's the main entity. I'm going to create another one called, well, user. I'm going to create another one called like. Okay, let's go with the comment. So the comment itself, we're going to have like properties. Right? What sort of properties? I'm going to come with like an ID, right? Let's come a comment. We also have, let's say, for you to be able to create a comment, well, you need to have, you can comment onto something, right? If it's a blog post, I'm gonna assume in here that this would be like a blog post, but we could like attach this to anything, right? That people can comment on. A user as well, right? So we need to know like who the user is. I'm just like encapsulating my model in here, right? So you can see that just like adopting encapsulation is good for you not to leak anything out of the implementation, right? So you can control that with methods. So that's why I'm using like encapsulation here. Uh, this may change, but for now, I'm gonna go like as is. What else? We're gonna have the description, right, of what they're gonna be submitting. Um, let's say that, well, we need to capture when the date was, well, when the comment was created, right? Let's have like some tracking on that. At the same time, like we can have like comments. Let's put like some rules in here. So that's why we're doing that. For comments could be just submitted. They could be while in process. They could be approved. They could be rejected. They could be published. Let's put like different sort of status and control that. And using rules, I'm gonna create in here approval status in we don't have that yet, right? So let's what else? Let's put like in here. We're gonna have also a list of likes, right? So we have a comment with many likes, so we can have that. Okay, let's create like this in so the next folder we're gonna have in here the nums, right? So right now we have entities in nums. Let's create this one. You guys can put like some comments in place. It feels that I don't want to rush, but I reckon when things are happening here, maybe in between I get to check those comments. But I know like there would be other senior devs that also experienced, and feel free to comment, maybe like reply to others, and I'll leave like some time, maybe like the after in the end, just to get to check and have like Q and A's, something like that. But right now, I know that if I jump to the code and jump to the comments all of the same time, I think it's gonna take like even longer. So let me just get going, and then you guys can see what's being produced. And perhaps depending on your questions, I can answer by doing the code, and then a later stage when we get to review the questions, we can just reference, right, what was implemented. So let's create this one in here, right? So let's create this in uh, as I mentioned, right? So we could have a status of submitted. Let's say we have like a process for doing that. That's going to evaluate uh, to approve or reject. But we're going to have like intermediate state. This one could be rejected, the comment. At the same time, could be approved, or even before it gets to be displayed, it needs to be published, right? Let me clean a little bit. So right now you can see that this one is already available for me to reference, right? So this one is complaining because this I think was created as internal, but we're gonna fix that one. Let's jump to the like, right? So like saying as internal. Let's change this like to a public implementation. But who can like? Well, a user can like a comment. So let's put like in here, like first the ID, uh, then let's put, well, the user ID. We're gonna be referencing. Let's go and put the comment ID. We could put like a date as well to capture when that happened, right? So date, time, and date created. We don't need more than that. I think this one is just like, okay, we know who the user is, what the comment is, and when that was applied. Let's do something similar for the user. So for the user, well, we're gonna have an ID, of course. We're gonna have, well, the name of the user. Let's capture the email as well. Right? Uh, so let's capture the email. Let's put like when the user was created as well, right? So when they joined the platform. But also let's say that the user cannot like, well, still not define the rules, but let's say that the user cannot comment until they have a particular status. All right, so we're gonna have like a business rule in here saying that um, user status. In here, a user can have, let's do like some mapping. So a user can have multiple comments, right? The user also can like many comments. Okay, let's go to the status. That's going to be a enum. Let's put like this one as well, enum. Okay, so let's create that user status enum. Uh, let's say that, well, the user, we could say that just joined, right? So it would be just joined. That's a status. Another status could be not ready yet. Let's say they need to have some points or whatever, like, but they cannot submit until a particular state. And then from here, we could say, yeah, they are enabled. They could be disabled. If they submit something that is not ideal, we could put like them on a warning state. And depending on their comments, we could just ban, right, those users. So let's say that. So we have this particular model. Well, so from here, let me just double check. Enum, all good. Well, so far so good, but we don't have behaviors, right? And well, we're talking about like clean architecture, and well, it makes sense when you have like a complex business domain. So let's bring those rules, right? So for comments, well, a comment could be uh, we could maybe process and then make it okay. So if the status is just submitted, then we can change the status to in process, right? Oops, not double equal, just single. And we can do the same for the other behaviors, right? Because let's say that now we can approve that. But for us to be able to approve, should be in process. And we can approve that. We can also reject, right? So let's reject that. Would be in process as well. So there is like a sequence, right? States that we're trying to control with those rules. And we could simply publish, right? So if that's approved, then we can change to published. All right, so we have in here some rules. Let's go to the like. Uh, Not the like, the user. The user doesn't can have like a status as well. So let's say that the user has just joined, but they're not there yet. I'm gonna create like a method. Uh, okay, not there yet. Right. So, well, it's a part of the process. You can only be assigned to that if you have just joined. So let's put that um, just joined, and then I'm gonna say, yep, uh, you're going to be not ready yet. There could be, oops, not just joined, not ready yet. Well, could have like different reasons. Like I'm thinking about like a point sort of approach. So they could just change their status. Right? Let me see here. Public void. Uh, then they could be enabled, right? So let's say that I'm gonna copy this to go a little bit faster. But I'm gonna say that, okay, so if they're not ready yet, we can enable them. Because now by some sort of specific rules or that we can define later, uh, well, now they are enabled. Or we can disable them. Well, if they are enabled, or let's say, or even if they are with a warning, we could say that, well, you can be disabled. It's okay. Let's go and continue that. We could set a warning for them to be warned. They need to be enabled. So we could do that. And we could simply ban. Let's pull in here. So if they have the warning, so that's the second, there was a warning, something was violated. Well, now they are banned. All right. What we could do in here is that we could call warning. So we don't need to verify on codes again, right, when we're applying that, like to check whether the user has a warning or not. We just say, okay, ban. If they have the warning, they get banned. Otherwise, they get to be warned, right? Uh, Another thing in here, let's go and create a constructor, right? The constructor itself, like what would be the minimal sort of information for me to build that object, right? So, well, have a dependency with blog post, ID, the user ID, a description, a date. No, I don't need. I can just status, not the likes. I can simply define, okay, date. This is my date in here. So that's the time where things are being created. My status, let's say, well, they have just submitted. Likes, no likes, but I'm going to create an empty list. Do we need ID? No, we don't. However, if we are retrieving the data, then we need to infer, right? Bring this ID. This could change, right? This encapsulation. We could have like a separate method or a different encapsulation to a different access property, right? Uh, it's not something I'm going to cover in here. but it's something that can be enhanced, right? I'm not going to be optimizing the modules at that level yet. Let's go with the constructor. So for this one, for the user, what would be important for us to be able to create a user straight away? Well, a name, an email, date created, no, I can infer. User status, no. Comments, no. Likes, no. Only those two. Those would be the ones that we could use to create a user. And if they have just joined, that's what they are gonna get. Comments, just empty, and we can infer like when we're dealing with the data. Uh, so we have like our models in here for a user, for a comment, and for a like. Here like we're missing the the constructor. Let's put like the like. We don't need to have the like ID, but we need to have the user ID, comment, date created. No, we don't. So we can define here our constructor. Let's put in here. Okay. I noticed like we have like some comments. They're coming. Let's see. All right. Yeah. I'm just seeing like the comments in here, but if you guys have like anything, just come and bring like your questions, right? And then we get to talk about it later on. So okay, so we have like enhanced entities. Let's come and well, uh, we're gonna have like need to handle some sort of behaviors. Like in general, I like exceptions. There are people that different opinions about it, right? I think like that if you're using a particular behavior and we are dealing with a specific behavior that you need to capture and deal with that, it makes sense to have exceptions. I'm gonna bring one example here that we could have, like comment not found exception. There will be part of the implementation where we're gonna provide an ID. If that ID is not valid, so we need to handle that. And I'm bringing like an example, but there could be more around the different behaviors and how you could handle that. Let me implement this one. So in general, we're going to have in here the comment ID, right? So we're going to be handling that. And well, let's put like a message. Let me put like interpolation here. So let's say, well, comments ID, comments, the comments, the number, not found, right? We're dealing with something that we expect. Things that we don't expect, we should have like global handling, right? Global exception handling. But if it's something that you know it's going to happen, like why not to have, and it's part of the domain or a behavior that you want to avoid any sort of validation, um, uh, I'm in favor of it. Okay, so we have this one. So we have like an exception being handled here, a custom one that aligns to what I want to do. What else we need to have? That's my preference, right? Repositories. Coming with like development background, for me, repositories make sense. I know like there are other people very opinionated about it, where when they're using, for example, with clean architecture, you can use DDD, domain-driven design. Some people, when you adopt that, you're working more like inclined to use repositories. That's my opinion. But there are other people that like don't like using that, prefer taking once the technology sort of um, implementation to avoid implementing this sort of abstraction. I particularly prefer adopting repositories, but not necessarily DDD, or not for this example. but well, you don't necessarily need DDD for implementing a clean architecture, right? So providing you have like a good domain, you have like understanding of your aggregation of how things should be working together, it makes sense for you to have a repository for that. I'm gonna call it as iComment repository. Oh, didn't put iComment repository. Right. In here we're gonna have this is an interface. So we're specifying our abstraction here, right, at the core. We're gonna have in here. So well, besides the simple task like CRUD operations that you could have, but you need to have business behaviors in here. But let's start with like things that we expect, right? This one. We're gonna have, for example, a list of something where we're gonna get comments, right? Async. Um, I'm saying like something. Um, we're dealing with entities, but when we are transitioning um, modules or objects, we shouldn't leak the entity implementation. This is very generic, but in general, like when you're transitioning data, we use DTOs, data transfer objects. That's what I'm gonna create in here. All right, let's put DTOs. This something is going to be my DTO. What DTO? One of the things that always maybe like you bang your head like just trying to define, oh, how we're going to call like this DTO, comment DTO, but it's a DTO you're going to be bubbling up from the data. Let's say like we're retrieving the information until you bubble up to the client, or we're going to be absorbing this DTO that coming from the client and persisting that to the repository. So comment DTO would be very generic. In general, I prefer using what's specific to the intent I'm trying to do. So for this one, it would be get comment DTO, right? So I think it becomes easier just to define like that. So you don't need to uh, massage your DTO to cope for different payloads properties, right? Uh, that's I think because what I have in here, I don't necessarily need to expose as a DTO. I could just fine grain. Like I don't need to expose a lot of properties in here. But what I'm gonna do, right? I'm gonna come with those. Right. So um, let's say I also need the ID because I can grab the information from the ID, the comment ID. But I don't need to have this. Right? So I could be just okay, just transitioning the information. I don't need to have like setters or just constrain that. I'm doing that on my entities already. So, okay, this is my DTO. I'm gonna be surfacing those details. I can have, so let's go back in here, like to the comment repository. What's my something? My get comment DTO, right? So I have like this implementation, but I could have others, right? So let's put get comment by ID. Okay, I could have that, but let me pass the ID. Let's say that we want to grab a user. Yeah, let's say that. No, actually submit a comment, right? Because we're surfacing, we're submitting. So I could do that, right? This is just a task. I'm not returning, but I'm gonna submit comment async. What's gonna be my object? Submit comment DTO. Oh, didn't grab it. Let me name it like that. But this is not created. Not yet. So let me create this one. Well, you could just look at the comments. What's important? Only this is important. I could just come with that, right? That in mind. There's just a prop. I think it's not gonna be friendly. Let me see. Yeah, let's say that's my comments. I need to have a user ID. Actually, I need to have the blog post reference, blog post ID, and the comment, right? That itself. Oops. And then a string, um, oh, description. Call it description. Right? This one needs to be public. Let me remove some noise. So that's what I have. And this one, if I close, leave only the submits. Well, that's a lot. Let me close that. And in here. So then I have my submit comments. At the same time, I could say that, well, let me start applying now some rules. So let's say submit comments. Let's say process comments. Process comments async. And then we can do, well, the comments was already submitted. I could just take the ID from here and use that, right? I could approve. I could, oops, controls and could put reject. I could even publish. Okay, could do something else. Yeah, let's ban the user in here. Okay, ban user. Uh, who is the user? User ID. Okay. Uh, okay. Well, you can see that this one can grow, right? And there are different ways of dealing with that as things grow. You, in general, like you're going to evolve from here, right? It's going to become like too painful, and this would grow. Like there are different patterns for that. There are a particular one called specification pattern. That what it does is that it allows you to have implementation as a condition. So things where you put like queries for bringing this information, you can have something centralized and then you can reference. On those templates available, you're going to see that. For now, you can see this is very verbose, right? But that's it. We're defining a repository, right? We're not adopting here any patterns at this stage. But I think I'm happy with that for now. We can have services, right? So I'm just bringing services in here. Why services? Well, I'm dealing with persistency, but at the same time, let's say for a particular comment, I want to be content moderated. Right? I don't want to have like any sort of profanity or any sort of comments that I wouldn't like to expose to any users. And I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna create like a abstraction, content moderation service, right? And what I'm gonna define here, public interface. I'm gonna say, okay, just validate if it has like any sort of profanity in here because I don't want that to be submitted on my comment or any comments has profanity, right? And description. For now, I think like that's what I can think about in terms of the infrastructure, what we could have. We could have like persistence, we could have cloud services, any sort of integration with external systems. I'm just bringing those two examples here of that we could leverage that with the repository or the services. I think like from here, in terms of what we got from the core, we have defined the abstraction. Now we can jump and create the application, let's say project. We're going to use a class library. Let me go clean arch dot application, right? That's the layer or implement with this project that we're going to coordinate the behaviors, right? So using .NET 7 in here, what we're going to have, like, so this is one step from being consumed by the clients, right? So I'm thinking here that, well, we need to handle the models. How are we going to handle the models? Like there's information come from a repository that's going to bubble up to the client. How we call it this in general, models? We call like view models, right? So uh, we could serve CDTOs all the way. Yes, we could. Right? Data transfer objects are good for transitioning the information. But when you get to the point where you're going to expose the information, maybe you still find grain the properties, right? Or you don't want to expose some sort of information there. You can still restrict that. I like adopting this because uh, it helps you find graining. Just exposes the information you need to expose to the clients with view models. So let's say get comments view model. Uh, to be honest, in here I think like what we had on the DTO was pretty good. I think, well, if you we could like only use the DTO directly. I feel that from uh, when we're defining some sort of standards, like you work on a team, well, I would, if you're using like view models to surface the information, yeah, just go like with view models. But nothing stops you from using DTOs. I think like just depends on what your team decides to do it, right? When you have like those sort of decisions that you need to consider. In here, I'm referencing the core. So outer layer referencing the inner layer. So that's what I'm gonna bring in here. Let me save that. What else? Let me bring another. Submit comments. Submit comments is different. What I didn't do is to surface the user in here. Um, I think I'm gonna go with it for now because I think I was maybe bubbling up like a user where we could verify, but maybe. For now, let's just have this as a single view model, but I also use input models as well. Right, so input models. And with that, we're going to receive the information coming from the client, right? For what? For a submit comment in here. Let's put like this. Submit comments view model. And let me change that to public. Cool. Well, let me remove some sort of noise. And well, what sort of information? Well, for this one, I think that's very effective, right? So it's just clean. I could like maybe, well, that sort of information is dependent, right, on my inner layers, right? So the way how the models are being created, it depends on that. If I had like any other information, maybe I could just capture from the UI and use that on my persistence. But this one is not view model, it should be input model. Let me change that. I'm just looking there like, oh no, it shouldn't be like that. Input model, right? Change that. So we have like consistency here on how we surface information up and absorb information down, right? So, but not only that, we're gonna have, that's I think that's the brain here. We're gonna have the services, and the application is going to coordinate how things work. Let me come with that for this one. I just noticed that maybe the zoom wasn't that great, but yeah, I think like I'm just thinking about the time, and we're gonna go a little bit further, as I said. So for this one, we're gonna have the iComment service. Why? Because that's in here that we're going to be defining the behavior. What we're gonna have in here. So let's say that, well, we're gonna be doing or surface information, but at the same time process information with the different rules. Let's say that I want to get my comment view models, but the list first, right? This one, get comments, async, okay? Uh, for this one, I'm just like specifying the interface. So, but I know that this is something I need to surface, right? What's complaining here? It's never used. Okay, yeah. And we're gonna have also a not class interface. We're gonna have also, well, the get comment view model or get comments by ID. Okay, int comment ID. Let's do more. We're going to submit comment input where submit comment, right? And this one is going to be, oh no, actually I'm not returning. I'm going only to be absorbing that within the implementation. And in here we're going to have the behavior. Let's put process, oops, process comments async. What comment? Comment ID, right? At this stage, the model was already submitted, so now we can do some sort of processing, apply some behaviors in here. Well, let's go and do it, because in here we define the interface. The interface don't need to be directly on the core. You can implement at different layers, right? I'm implementing here and define the application layer. Let me come and do that. And let me go in here. And I'm going to implement the iComment service. All right. Cool. In here, like things become interesting, right? Because now I need to coordinate what's going to be doing, what I'm going to be doing with the repository and the service. So I'm gonna go in here and create, well, now it's going to be this behavior. Let me put it the I repository, I comments repository, but also the content moderation service, right? Nice. Well, I'm gonna make sure that this field is implemented. This one as well. Let me zoom out a little bit. It feels like that. I know like it's difficult for you guys to see a bit, but I think this one should be okay for now. Let's see. Uh, okay. So all right. So now we have access to those abstractions. Well, let's make use of it. All right, so comments equals, oh, it's getting me, like, even like the behavior here. Oh, come on, comment, get comments, this. And well, that's a task, so it needs to be waited. I will talk about like asynchronous communication, but it's a list of get comment DTO. This one is get comment view model. So we need to convert that, right? Comments view model. The way how we're gonna do it is we're gonna manually map. I'm not using any mappers in here, but you're gonna see that like there are libraries that help you with that, like Mapster, AutoMapper. You can use that. I'm doing here like manually. That's the intent, is to show like without leveraging libraries, or just showing like, well, what's the job, like what's the deal with the clean architecture. So for this one, I'm gonna do a select where I'm gonna put a comment for a new get comments DTO. All right, so for this one, that's the comments with the ID. I need to put the blog post, not lowercase, it needs to be capital. Okay, this one is going to be user ID. We're gonna have the date. It's variables, right? You look at that, if you, wow, that's yeah, we could avoid that, but you're gonna see that when things get painful, that's when like you need to take an action, right? I would say, yeah, like you could use in here at this stage, return, oops, return the comments, comments view model, it's plural, right? Uh, why it's complaining? List get comments, DTO, KK. Not get comment, get view model. This one. All right. So, well, we have an implementation here, right? So let's do something similar for the get comments by ID. In here, I just copy like what was above. Let me bring comments ID. And for this, oh, we have a sync, but this one is going to be a single comment. Well, at this stage, this one could be null. We would expect that. We could. If that's no, then what we're gonna do is throw a new comment not found exception with the comments ID, right? So, uh, well, we have like we're expecting for that exception, so that's why we're making use of it. What we're gonna do now is just to do the mapping, because we're gonna have a single object in here. So let's see this. And this one is going to come from comments. So let's go and replace that. Okay. I'm seeing like some comments in here. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, some valid comments. I think like there will be like some sort of further discussions on that. I'm seeing like the comments. I'll get back to that. Yeah. Okay. So, well, I'm returning here, making use of my comment exception. Well, I could do the submit. Yes, I could. I think I'm gonna just skip for now, just looking at we're 9. So it's been 1 hour already. Maybe get back to this one, but let's do like the processing. Uh, for this one, yes, let's do that. So we're gonna have like in here, we need first, because we're submitting the comment, we're going to be, we need to retrieve the information, right, from the repository, and because we only have the ID, so we need to get this comment. What we're gonna do in here is that, okay, we're gonna get the comment. This is, I'll wait. All right, so we're gonna get the comments in here. This is a task, yes, async. So, well, we are already handling any exceptions, but we're retrieving the comment. Well, I'm not defining here. We don't define any sort of architecture, right? So this could be a simple, what would be like the definition is just monolith, right? So this could be a monolith. It could be a microservice. It just depends like how we're dealing with status updates. Because I'm considering this as a monolith, just something simple, I'm not using messaging at all, but I'm gonna be uh, updating the status, right? So we have this one called process comment. And well, this one only takes the comment ID. I'm gonna be using that, updating the status, because at this stage, we're processing information. So there's a change of the state. But then it gets to the point that, okay, this message was first submitted. Uh, we should do like any sort of, just capture that information. But then maybe at the processing, when it's happening, then we validate whether that information should be approved, rejected, right, and take some decisions from it. That's my what I'm bringing to this implementation. What we could do, right? So we could check in here if you have any sort of profanity, right, coming out of from the content moderation service. Content moderation dot has profanity. The description, well, I don't have description. Well, I do because now I have the object in here. All right, so that's why rehydrated, right, the object from the repository. So okay, I can check in here that, well, is this has been content moderated. This if it has profanity, right? What we can do, well, we need to take some actions in here. We need to process, right? To comment repository dot, well, we're gonna reject this one, right? So this comment ID is not suitable. Oops, let me go. Okay, but at the same time, we're gonna ban the user, right? Or put like a warning. So I could just come in here and ban the user. Do I have the user ID? Well, I have because I have rehydrated that. This one should be on transaction. All right, we need to make sure that it happens once. All right, so it's atomic, can be consistent, durable, persists, and it's isolated as well. So we need to implement that. We're not doing it today, but that's something that needs to be actioned together. And in case it's not, then, well, let's approve. All right, so let's approve the comments and comment ID. Well, for this one, I didn't do on purpose because of the time constraints, but in here we have a behavior. And you can see that, well, this comment service is doing some sort of orchestration of the different the services with the repository, just enforcing some sort of validation here and the behavior that we expect from the abstraction that we have on core. All right, so that's something that we have in here and that's implemented. I think with that we get to the application uh, layer, right? Implemented. So now let's go like to the outer layers. I'm gonna go and create this one for clean arch, not clean arch for infrastructure. not infrastructure. This one should be okay with .NET 7. Cool, we created that. What we're gonna have in here. So now we're coming down to the technology side, right? The other two layers, they all abstracted. We don't have dependencies on anything besides the application from core. But here, the infrastructure are going to reference those projects. But now we're introducing the technologies onto those projects in here, right? So what we're gonna do in terms of structure? Let's say, well, we're gonna have our persistence. We're gonna have our I'm gonna call cloud services. Could be anything. There are projects that they start big already. So we could have like different infrastructure projects, like one being specific for persistent, the other one being for cloud services. It's up to you really, but depending on what you're implementing, yeah, they can grow just big and just start big, right? So let's go with persistence. I'm going to, well, I'm going to use entity framework. That's the intent of these lessons. I'm just gonna come up with comments DB context, right? And for this one, well, we could leverage any other technologies, right? Any other ORMs, DB context. And but yeah, I'm going with Identity Framework. It's just something that I used very often. It feels okay, more intuitive, right? I'm also bringing like here the repositories. We're gonna have like the implementation itself on how we retrieve the information. And another thing I like with Entity Framework is that we can have configurations, right? Uh, I think we're going to have like another lesson to tackle the repositories, but what I can do right now, all right, let's just reference, where's the nugget here? Let's reference the Entity Framework core. And I'm going to bring like this reference in here because at least we can have a minimal sort of implementation the uh, for the infrastructure, right? Just to get something working. Well, that's my reference. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create that entity framework. I'm gonna put like some sort of constructors in here because in general we have some sort of dependencies, DB context options, right? So I'm gonna put like something here. We can explore this one in more details in another session, but for now, I'm just gonna put like what would be something that would be okay just to have and make it work. Right? Comment. Oops. Go back. Yeah, it's not like available because comment belongs to the core. So I'm referencing the core in here, right? So that's why this is going to be the entity. It's coming comments, right? So what else? We're gonna have user. We're gonna have I should have done some. Let me just go and put a like. Users. Okay, I think this one is fine for now. Well, just to get something building, right? And then let's put like the comments repository. Let's put in here. Let's come. And well, so now we're going to implement iComments repository. Wow, that's all of that. Yeah, all of that. That's the painful part. All right, so as I said, when something's painful, then you need to take an action. For now, we're gonna go as is, right? So, but there are ways of optimizing that. Let's go and come with the comments, DB context, right? And okay, this is going to be injected, right? we're all leveraging here like dependency inversion, right? So we're going to come outer layers, referencing the inner layers. This one is going to be created with like dependency injection. That's going to be implemented where? In the user interface, yes. So for this one, so return comments dot, well, to list async, right? Okay, but there's a consideration here as well. It's not like our comments. Okay, let me bring this one. Well, we're returning get comment DTO, not comments. So we're not leaking the entities onto the other layer. So we need to do what? Conversion. We need to do mapping in here. So comments DTO, right, equals. Let's do the same as we did before. So for these comments, we're going to create a new get comments DTO, and we're going to bubble up, right? All of the information that we have in here, okay? And blog post, c dot blog post. What else? The date created, c dot date created. Description, well, of course, description. And status, c dot status. Cool, dot to list. And we're gonna return this one, right? So, well, you could see like how painful it is. Right? Took like some time. But yeah, we're making sure in here that we're surfacing DTOs, right? Not the entity itself. We should implement all of the rest. Yes, we should, but we don't have the time. Uh, I think like with that, we have like the repository in place. Let's make like the content moderation, right? This is where we're using cloud services for that. Content moderation service, right? So let's create this class. And what we're gonna do it and put it like in here. Well, we should call like an external service. Could be any service on Azure. You have like content moderation for that. We could like make a request call in there. But you can see here that the abstraction that we defined before, it's only been implemented the infrastructure layer, right? I'm gonna leave like in here for now, and let's jump like to the client. Well, can be any client. It could be ESP.NET Core. I'm gonna use Azure Functions, right? Because I like functions. Well, who doesn't? Well, there are a lot of people that use like in general ESP.NET Core, and I want like just to bring like a function because it could be even console, like if you want it, right? So and put like this one. I'm gonna call it client. It's user interface, but I'm gonna call it client. Uh, I think this is it, client. When it goes in, that's isolated because I'm using .NET 7. So with long-term, long-term support, you can only use in process. A separate conversation, but with isolated, we can use like .NET 7. I'm making use of that. And let's create this one. All right, so I'm gonna make like just few adjustment endpoints, right? So before it was function one, I'm just renaming that to endpoints. If that gets changed, it did. Just some lag. And well, we need to do some injection here, right? Configure services with what? With the service collection. That's the container we have, well, in functions as well, right? That we can use to inject the inversion of control uh, implementation on that's built in on ESP.NET Core and also available on functions. So let's put like in here injection. But what exactly? Well, remember, we have an injection for the context, we have injection for the repository, We have injection for the service. Well, for the service that it's available on the infrastructure, for the service we have in the application. How we're gonna do it? We could like put everything here. I like it, just organize a little bit. Let's call like create a folder called extensions, right? And we could call it service collection extensions. I'm gonna call it like that. Service collection extensions, right? So let me create that. All right. This is going to be static. And static because we're going to extend the, well, the service collection itself. So it's going to return our service collection, public static. Okay. And let's say add comment db context. And this is going to receive a iService, oops, iService collection. Service collection, it's better. And we're going to be service collection dot add. We don't have in here because we need to reference the entity framework, right? Of course. So let's include this one in here because we cannot like hook the DB context because we don't have the library here. So let's bring this one on. Okay, that was done. All right, so that came up. Beautiful. Comments, DB context, right? We don't have that. Why? Because this is infrastructure. Well, so the client is referencing infrastructure? Yes, it is, because we have the context defined in there. So for this one, we can create like say options. All right. To make it to work, I'm gonna use in memory, right? So we can use the in-memory implementation just to make sure that things compile and we can retrieve some sort of values. Uh, options dot use in memory memory database. What's the name? Comments database. Okay. We need to return this one. Return service collection. All good. Well, I mentioned need to use reference the repositories, right? I'm gonna copy this whole thing in here just to avoid retyping, but I'm gonna put add repositories, right? And well, service collection dot add what? What level? Well, the scope. Why scope? Because comments repository, this one. Because what happens, right? So this is going to be the scope of the user request. So we cannot have like singletons. We could make like per request, we could, but scoped, well, the session that's created for that particular request remains available for you. So we're making better use of initialization of the service collection, right, of the container. Let's create the service. So let's pull the service in here. Add services. Yeah, let's go. Service collection dot. Oh, we're gonna use a singleton. Content moderation service, right? Content moderation. Oh, here we go. Right. Well, content moderation makes sense to have a singleton because, well, a single instance that can be reused by the different requests. I think this one makes sense to have a singleton, so that's why I bring it. The other one, let me bring. Well, we have implemented the service on the application layer, right? So we need to bring that one in. Add. I'm gonna put a scope for that one as well. Uh, Let's bring comment service. Comment service. Well, that one is not there. Why? Because we have not referenced. So that's coming now. So with that, well, pretty good. I think we're getting there, nearly there. Just hang with me. It's been 9:20, 1 hour and 20 minutes. We're kind of like very aligned, right, to what I was expecting, right? So let's go like with the client. So now we need to make use of actually the injection. Don't forget about that. So add comment db context uh, and put well, why it's not happening? Service. Did I name it like different? Add comment db. Okay. Repositories. Something's not right in here. Let's see. Add services. Right. So if things like were to work well, so this one would be I think I didn't. Public static. Public static. This one's okay. Public collection extensions. This. Yeah. The demo could be just entirely, well, busted just by forgetting this. And now it's coming, right? So, anyways, I think like it's just we're getting there. I just like have high expectations for this to work really. And what we're gonna do in here, I comment service. Well, let's bring it on. What I'm gonna do in here, let's put var comments equal comment service dot. Well, I'm gonna put just like one way of us being able to bring some sort of information, right? Not necessarily bring those rules in here, but you can see, let me put like return comments. Of course, it's complaining. This should be the type, should be, no, go back. This one. All right. Cool. I'm going to put a pointer, a breakpoint in here. I think what we have at the moment works. Fingers crossed, things build. And yeah, because like from here, it's basically connecting, right? All of the layers, we're making the client itself to be uh, the way how we're going to start the operations and make like the requests, right? Okay, apparently has built. Let me just play the solution and then we can see. Okay. I should have renamed. Yes, I didn't do it, but anyways, let's just validate if this is working. Let me bring another window. This one. Or it could be a get, a post. I didn't force anything, but the main point is that I want to see these breakpoints. Yes. Yes. So what's gonna happen here? Like the serves. If you look at here, ah, well, we have the repository, the service was created, the context, the big context was created with the objects in there. Nice. So if you were like, well, we don't have any data, but you can see that we are bubbling, well, we're going down to retrieve the information. This is going now to the application layer, right? So, well, we're gonna go to the repository. Yes, we're gonna go even like now. So when the application layer, the application coordinates, and the implementation is available in infrastructure. So that's coming now here. Comments, 0. That's expected, right? I don't have like details in here. But I would expect exceptions, right? So that's shows that things, well, it would work if you were just to continue implement that, right? So you should have an empty array because um, that's like well, the intent, right? Just to get like things connected and working. Um, so you can see that, let me zoom in. All right, so we create the core, then the application, infrastructure, and the client. Oops, client. Um, from here, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna commit this one. So it's going to be available for you to have a look, play, even like improve, right? In general, like really suggest that people take those repositories and improve that, right? Make it better, right? Let's see some questions. Um, let's see here. Well, I like this one. So for Hamid, hopefully I'm pronounced correctly. So should the main user method be part of the iUser repository? It depends, right? So in general, like the way how you look at your implementations, you look at how the objects are connected, right, together. It could be that the user itself wouldn't be manipulated on this model or in this implementation. It could be, we could just be surfacing or a user reference, right? It feels that if you're going to be dealing with different repositories, you should avoid uh, crossing the different boundaries. Let's call boundaries, right? Because what would end up is that if you have like transactions and you have different repositories, you have like a complication there. That's in the past we used to use like this unity of work to make the objects, well, the repositories to be available in different transactions. But that looks like very data um, centric, right? We no longer like do that sort of splitting of repository based on data, but based on functionality. So user could have like its own repository, user repository. It could, right? But in this implementation here, we have okay. Assume that it will be part of the core. It also also depends on the architecture that we're going to adopt. So if you're using like microservices, for example, you could have like that separately, but you will need to deal with service orchestration, right? Message orchestrations to be able to do that. That's also a complication, right? That's why people come up with DDD, because that puts you like to think about, okay, what's your domain, right? What would be like your aggregates, things that you think about like together, right? They shouldn't be disconnected. So I think that's my comments on that, right? That's also completely uh, open like for discussion, because I think what happens, people have different opinions, but you need to come with the opinion that your team is happy with. Right? I think that's the main thing. If you're gonna come and discuss with your team to do something that they're not happy because lack of understanding, experience, and yeah, it becomes like a complicated factor within the company that you work. I think like yeah, I, I'm gonna do like a little bit of uh, what's next, right? Let me just bring this one. Hopefully you can see it. What else? I think that's the point in here, because if you're gonna look at what you could implement and what you can see on those templates, you see CQRS, mediator, right? Fluent validation. You have mappers, exception handling, logging, use of specification pattern, entity framework core, right? That we are gonna be unit testing, right? We didn't cover unit test because it has like its own, um, I would say, challenges as well. You can see that this topic is huge, and there's more, right? We only covered lesson one, and it was pretty full on. I think like from this demo here, what I'm gonna be submitting on the repo, you're gonna have like different opinions. Uh, be in touch, right? I'm available on LinkedIn. and or even like on the chat here for a later check. I'm gonna review that. But I think like with that, I just like to thank you. I knew that this was going to take a little bit more than 1 hour, 1 hour and 30. And yeah, but it feels that this was the main lesson, right? That kind of enables everything that's coming together. Next lesson, I'm going to be focusing on secure IS, mediators, right, and some like fluent validation. So because those templates, they use that. So now you're going to understand how to embed this onto this example, right? So that's why we have different lessons. I hope like you have enjoyed, and we always have like different sessions. So tonight's being me. Next, I think in a couple weeks we have like more coming. And yeah, I always ask you to have a look. Just if you are keen to also produce some content, and well, just come forward and ping me. I think like this one, you're definitely invited. Just let's just talk about it, and then we can arrange a session for you to present. Yeah, with that, well, have a good rest. Appreciate you guys joining, and I see you next time. Well, have a good night.